So welcome everybody. My name is Ellie Grapp. I use she, her pronouns. I'm part of the Mountain Midwest Hub. So if you are somewhere between Idaho and Illinois, we are your hub serving you with service delivery and training. We offer a somewhat monthly webinar series, giving you kind of a bite-sized learning around something that is relevant or that we're seeing a lot of need around. And we're really excited to welcome on some members of our YUSA Government Relations and Policy team today. Kennai is our Senior Director of Communications and Advocacy Engagement, and Kelsey.mckim joining the Communications Coordinator with that team. So I am going to waste no time and turn it right over to Kelly to get us started.
Thank you, Ellie. We really appreciate you inviting us to do this today. And it's really perfect timing because we're just 10 weeks away from Election Day, which is November 8th, and 3 weeks out from National Voter Registration Day. So now really is the time to start thinking about how your Y might help your community to get ready to vote if you haven't already started. And let's go to the next slide, Kelsey. So registering to vote is really a great first step in civic engagement. And civic engagement supports the Y's cause of strengthening community. So whether we're engaging volunteers in community projects, running youth and government programs, or advocating for issues that are important to us, or helping our community get ready to vote. We are able to reach youth, lower income individuals, ethnic and racial minorities, all of these groups, which are typically underrepresented in the political process and really historically participate in civic engagement activities at lower rates. And helping these groups really see themselves as voters is so important. We know that research shows that voters are more likely to volunteer, contact their elected officials, and stay informed about what's going on in their communities. And these are all things that improve social connectedness, something that we find really important at the Y, and we do it every single day. And we know that many Ys don't have a lot of staff time to devote to efforts like voter registration and voter engagement, but there really are some simple ways that any Y, large or small, can participate in. And one way is by becoming a National Voter Registration Day partner. YUSA has been a premier partner of National Voter Registration Day since 2018. And we're really excited because every year more and more Ys participate. It's really a great way to dip your toe in the water of voter engagement if you haven't already jumped in. And if you haven't registered yet, make sure you do it by September 16th. So if you haven't registered to be a partner of National Voter Registration Day, try to do it by September 16th, because if you do, you'll receive really cool swag like posters, stickers, and buttons to help you celebrate the day. And those will get mailed right to your YMCA by nonprofit vote. So to share more about National Voter Registration Day and go over some of the nuts and bolts around conducting voter registration initiatives, we have a guest from Nonprofit Vote, the organization that created National Voter Registration Day, and that's Danny Navarro. And Danny's been working in the civic engagement space for about 10 years now, and he's a native of Miami, Florida. He began his career working in several political campaigns in that region. He was instrumental in winning Florida for President Obama in 2012 and orchestrating the largest turnout the country has ever seen to date. He moved to DC in 2014, where he's worked with Voto Latino, Taproot Foundation, AILA, State Voices, and Feeding America. And right now, he's the Partner Engagement Director with Nonprofit Vote. So Danny, welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for coming in today and pretty much wanting to learn everything that there is to know about voter registration in about 15 minutes. We'll try to be as quick and concise as possible. Go ahead, you can go ahead to the next slide. So before I talk about National Voter Registration Day, I just want to preface the presentation here by noting that every single state has different rules for how to conduct voter registration, how to process the forms, how to handle them, and so on. So all of the information that we're providing here is going to be general tips and best practices. We're always going to ask you to refer to your state's elections website, to your local election administration office for the county. That is going to be your best up-to-date resource as to what you need to do, when, what, all the rules that you need to follow specifically for your county, okay? Having said that, let's go ahead and proceed with all the information that we're going to provide with you here today. So National Voter Registration Day is a nonpartisan civic holiday that was created and is being managed by Nonprofit Vote. It is celebrating its 10-year anniversary, which is why we're super excited to have the Y involved this year. And so, and Kelly, thank you for sharing the link there. You want to go ahead, if you are a fellow Y that wants to be part of this process, go ahead and register to become a partner through that link. That way, we're able to track overall how many chapters from the Y have decided to sign up. And as Kelly said, you will be able to get all the swag that we have available. We're going to be hosting it this year on September 20th. It is a Tuesday. It's not the fourth Tuesday as it's usually done. Change due to religious holiday happening the following Tuesday. So it's going to be on the 20th. And this is going to be a nationwide effort between different nonprofits and other organizations that we're partnering with across the entire country, public, private, and government, and so on. And the whole point is to encourage all of our fellow citizens to register to vote or re-register if they have recently moved, so on and so forth. Make sure that all the paperwork is up to date, and that way they can go ahead and participate in the elections. Next slide, please. And so here's the simple reasons why we celebrate National Voter Registration Day. As many as 1 out of 4 Americans are not registered to vote, or they're unsure that they are registered. Again, depending on the state, you might have states where you have high voter registration rates. Mind you, there are some states that don't require voter registration. So again, always check with your state. But then there are other states that have, unfortunately, not as high of a number, right, of individuals that are registered, or unfortunately, they might have been booted out of the voter rolls because of archaic laws or archaic processes. So we just want to make sure that with every individual that we're speaking with, that we reinforce the, are you sure, right? You know, like, hey, let's help you reconfirm, right? If you are indeed registered to vote, because many times people think they are registered to vote, but they might not realize that because they might have had a name change, they have to re-register. If they have recently moved to another address, they have to re-register. If they were recently reinstituted, they were formerly a felon, and they might not realize that they do have the right to vote. Okay, then we need to help them out there as well. So there's many reasons why Americans think that they're not eligible to register to vote, and instead they are. We just have to help them out through that entire process. Of course, the other aspects of it is, you know, the cynicism part, you're not going to be able to help too much, right? If an individual really just doesn't trust in the system, you know, really can't do much there. But more often than not, people just don't know when it happens, right? It's kind of hard to believe in this day of social media and mass media that people don't know when the election happens, but it's true. Lots of folks are not plugged in and tuned into that entire sphere of elections and politics and so on. So you want to be able to provide folks with information as to, you know, when it is, where can they go to find out information about early voting, absentee voting, vote by mail, and so on. And the reason why we are here in recruiting nonprofits like yourselves to be involved in this process, because you have the most unique and powerful relationship, and that is you're local, okay? Political campaigns are more concerned about winning the election than trying to build long-term power and empowerment of the local communities. And other entities are just going to do the typical parachute in, you know, do some work in the community for a few months and then leave, right? You instead are in the community day in and day out. You're a trusted member of the constituents in the area. So that is why we look to you as the nonprofits as that trusted source of information, as a trusted source of just trust in the community, that then you're able to provide this information to folks. So that's why we celebrate NVRD, and that's why we're recruiting the nonprofits to participate. Next slide. And so for this year, we're looking to register over 800,000 people. That will pretty much bring it up to 5.5 million voters registered that NVRD has been able to register in the past 10 years, recruit over 4,000 partners. And again, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So this is really, really, really a big deal, especially now given the times where, you know, advocating for democratic values and ensuring that people participate and have the right to participate and exercise their right to vote is extremely important. Next slide. So, and you can go ahead and proceed to the next slide. So one of the main things about doing this work as a nonpartisan organization is to remain nonpartisan, okay? And, you know, so let's start with the 501c3 status, right? Because that's typically a main question a lot of nonprofits ask us that, hey, can I even do this work? The answer is yes, okay? Your 501c3 status does allow for organizations to conduct voter registration, get out to vote drives in a nonpartisan manner. That means that you are not allowed to favor or oppose one or more candidates or political parties. You're not allowed to show any sort of favoritism to one party or the other or oppose to the other in any way, shape, or form. That means that if someone comes up to you and they say they're a Democrat, you help them register to vote. If they come up to you and say they're Republican, you help them register to vote. If they're communist, whatever it may be, you help those individuals to register to vote and help provide them with the information that they need to go and participate in the elections as you would with anybody else, okay? Of course, perhaps the only minor exception is if they say that they're not a citizen, okay, yes, they're not allowed to vote, right? And in that respect, okay, you follow the rules there. But the whole point is that you're not allowed to show any sort of bias towards one side or the other. Next slide. So like I said, you're not allowed to show any of support or opposition. You're not allowed to suggest which party. Now, there might be folks in your conversations as you're helping people out, they might ask you, hey, who should I vote for, right? You'll have to gently and kindly remind them that you're not allowed to do so. It's against the law for you as a volunteer of a nonprofit organization to recommend a choice in that respect, right? You can offer them information to the websites of the political parties if you may, but again, it all has to be done in equal access, right? You know, if you can't provide one information over the other. Like I said, you're able to register anyone eligible to vote. Typically, that is 18 plus by election day. Sometimes, if you're pre-registering students to vote, depending on the state, that could either be at 16 or at 17. You can go ahead and do that as well. But just again, make sure that you're very clear, not only with yourselves, but with the students that you're working with. Hey, you are going to be eligible to vote in this election, or it's until the next election that they'll be able to vote. Okay, so that's why we always recommend you check with your local elections office. Next slide. Okay, so if you do agree to become a partner for National Voter Registration Day, there are just some rules that we ask you to follow. Again, be nonpartisan, be inclusive, be aware of your state's voter registration laws. So that's going to have to take a little bit of a conversation with your local elections office. Be non-transactional. Okay, so this is another aspect of the work that you want to be careful of. You can offer a lemonade stand, right, as an example, for anyone that wishes to come to your table. If they wish to register to vote, great, they can take the lemonade. If they don't want to register to vote or they don't need to, great, they can take the lemonade. You cannot make it a transaction situation where only if you register to vote can you take the lemonade. Okay, you're not allowed to do that. Okay, so offer all the swag that you want, offer any treats that you want, but it has to be done as they can take them regardless of whether they register to vote with you or not, okay? And most importantly, have fun. Please, please, please have fun with this process. We need to show folks that this is not a scary thing to do. This is a constitutional right that people have, right? But that this is not something that needs to be swamped in the cynicism or swamped in the misinformation that unfortunately is plaguing a lot of our political discourse in this day and age. Be friendly, be of service to individuals, right? Help them out through difficult questions. If you don't know the answer, that's okay to tell them, hey, I actually don't know, but let me give you this phone number to the local elections office. They might be able to help you out. So overall, make the day as fun as possible. We're trying to celebrate democracy here as much as we can. And so folks need to feel that excitement, and they're going to feed off of that positive energy that you'll have. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide here. So there's multiple ways that you could do voter registration. We have provided Kelly with a online voter registration link that will help the Y be able to track how many voters they have registered through online methods. So you can definitely use that OVR tool, online voter registration tool, which if you have a wide reach, if you have lots of social media following or email contact lists and so on, you could definitely do that. There's also in person, and we would encourage, based on your situation, right? Whether on your resources, on your staff time, and so on, to use the best resource that's available to you. If you have a lot of in-person volunteers that you can do an in-person digital registration drive, then perfect, then do that, right? Or if they prefer to do the good old paper voter registration form, okay, go ahead and do that too. But just make sure that you have the processes in place to handle what's going to happen on that day, right? Just because you might have an online voter registration tool doesn't mean that it's going to be the easiest option, right? You might have a lot of folks messaging you or tweeting at you, hey, how do I do this? Or any sort of types of questions. You're going to need to have staff ready to be able to troubleshoot online, right? If you're doing an in-person paper voter registration event, you got to make sure you have plenty of pens, make sure that you go through a training with your volunteers, make sure that everyone's filling out the correct boxes. You're handling the quality control aspect as well. That's very important. You want to make sure that you're protecting those forms, because since they do have sensitive information from individuals. And then in-person digital, you want to make sure that you have that you're conducting this event at a place where you can recharge your iPads or whatever other digital materials that you're using. You want to make sure that people feel comfortable with providing the information on a digital item like an iPad, because some folks might feel much more confident in filling out a paper application than filling it out online and saying, oh, that could get hacked. So again, you have to work with what you have in terms of resources, but then what your community is going to feel much more comfortable with as well. So there's different ways to do this. Next slide, please. And quickly, we're just going to go through the next couple of slides here, so you can go ahead and click through the next ones. I'm assuming that these slides will be provided for everyone here, but there's some checklists that we've provided for digital voter registration, for paper voter registration, and so on. You just want to make sure that you are following these steps, so that way you're not forgetting, say, oops, we forgot to tell everyone to provide a phone number. That's actually quite important in the voter registration process, because if the local elections office needs to call that individual to confirm a piece of information that maybe they can't read legibly or doesn't match their records, we want to provide the elections office with that phone number, so that way they can go ahead and contact an individual. That's a common example and a common question that we get from a lot of folks. Do they have to fill in a phone number? We highly recommend it for those purposes. But there are other questions and other points here in our checklist that we want to make sure that you're mentally and physically aware of. So in that way, as you're coordinating your day's activities, you're not forgetting to secure the voter registration forms, right? And that you're leaving them kind of off to the side. They can be snooped up by a nefarious individual, or that you're leaving the forms, as might often be more of the issue, next to that lemonade stand, and then oopsies, the lemonade falls on top of all the forms, and then you lost all your work. So a lot of the kind of common sense things you want to make sure that you're taking care of as you're going through your NVRD activities through the day. All right, next slide. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about here in regards to quality control, right? You want to make sure that, yes, you're registering a bunch of individuals to vote. That's great, but you want to make sure that all the forms are completed, right? Because if half of those forms don't have a signature, you kind of, it's a lot of lost work, unfortunately, right? You want to make sure that you're storing the forms in a secure location, whether on site or back at your offices, and make sure that you're turning in the forms at the right timeline. Again, based on your state's rules, that might be you have to turn in the forms within 24 hours, 48 hours, a week or so. You want to make sure you're turning in those forms. Generally, our best practices within 24 to 48 hours. Again, it avoids any issues with potential spoilage of the forms. And then it just gets the information faster to the elections office. They're going to be processing a lot of forms, as you can imagine, up to their state's voter registration deadline. So you just want to make sure that their work is much more simplified as much as possible by providing all of that paperwork as fast as possible. Okay. And in summary, again, this is another checklist here. Determine how you're going to collect the forms, whether it's going to be online or paper. Identify the materials or devices that you're going to need. Familiarize yourself with the state's election laws. They're pretty straightforward. some states might be a little bit more complicated, but you have plenty of time between now and September 20th. Make sure you have a system in place. Okay, don't oversee that aspect of the work. And then again, keep it nonpartisan, keep it fun, be all about customer service, help your community out, exercise their right to vote, and you should have a fantastic NVRD event. I think that is the last slide for me. And if you have any further questions, Kelly, I'm not sure if you're going to leave those towards the end, or if you want to have them email me, by all means, feel free to share my contact information. Thank you, folks.
Yep, thanks so much, Danny. Yeah, if you could stick around till the end for Q&A, we'd appreciate it. And I would just invite anyone who does have a question, please feel free to post that in the chat, and we can answer those at the end. So now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Kelsey.mckim, who's my partner in crime on YUSA's government relations team. And Kelsey's going to share some of the Y-specific tools and resources that we've developed, much of it based on nonprofit votes content that they've put together. So everything has been checked by experts. And again, really, we just want to make sure that we're making it easy for all of you and people at YMCAs across the country to be able to engage voters and help their communities get vote ready. And a lot of these tools also really complement the tools that Danny was just talking about. So Kelsey.
Thanks. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm sure everybody was, knowing I would say it, you can find all of these resources that I'm about to go through on link. So Kelly's going to drop the link in the chat. We have all of them in one anchor post. So whenever you click on that post, anything new, we will continue to update in that same spot. So you can always find anything voter engagement related at that link in the chat. So what that looks like, we have our 2022 voter registration toolkit. We have social media graphics for National Voter Registration Day, other civic holidays like Election Hero Day, Voter Education Week, as well as general graphics that you could use anytime between now and Election Day. We have the countdown to the election that we do in partnership with Nonprofit Vote, which is a theme every week leading up to the election, which is templates of like emails you could send out to your members or to community members, talking about different aspects of the election, such as knowing who's on your ballot, making sure you know what kind of ID you need to bring with you, and then campaign and election do's and don'ts, which Danny talked about a little bit earlier, but you can also find a refresher of what would and would not be acceptable in that resource. We also have digital tools that I'm excited about. We have a partnership with vote.org, which is a nonpartisan voter registration platform. So if you go to ymca.org/vote, or you can use this QR code and scan your screen right now, you can access 4 digital tools that are Y branded. So we have where people can go online to register to vote, to check their registration status, to request an absentee ballot, or to sign up for election reminders. And the great thing about this is that anybody who uses those YMCA links, we can see the metrics of that. So we don't see their personal data, but we can see, how many people checked their registration status, how many people went on and said, oh, I'm not registered, I'm going to get registered. And if you would like a custom link so that you can track how many people are registering through your WISE engagement, or if you want to get a little competitive maybe and like have 2 youth and government groups go against each other and see who can register the most voters, you can reach out to me, and I think Kelly's going to put my email in the chat, but we can get you set up with a custom URL and a custom QR code so you can have your specific metrics tracked. Okay, that was really quick. I'm going to turn it over to Sara Cole, who is president and CEO of the Duluth Area Family YMCA, to share a story.
Thanks so much. I am an excited voter, and I'm just thrilled to be here today because I think this is one of those things that is so key. It's something really doable. I know sometimes it feels overwhelming and we're not sure what we can do to be part of the sort of political process. And I think the easiest and most straightforward thing we can do is vote. So, so much great information has been shared here today. And I love the emphasis on the fact that our relationships at the Y can really help us bridge the gap and make folks feel comfortable with the voting process. So I would just really encourage Ys out there to have some fun with this. We've seen the rules, so abide by those rules, but you can make this really fun. Again, have food or music. have friendly faces out greeting folks and giving folks information. And this is really, I think the Y can be a great conduit for reminding folks not only to register to vote, but also reminding folks about local and national elections too. Sometimes it's easy to forget about our local elections, but it's a really powerful thing to remind folks that those local elections are happening. So state and local elections are also huge. So at RY, we've done a few things through the years that have been really fun. We've had food, we've had good local music, we've just had friendly faces, both reminding folks to vote, and then on voter day, assisting too. So I know lots of Ys out there maybe provide some childcare so folks can get to the polls. Maybe you work with some transportation assistance for folks who might need transportation to get to the polls. Again, remaining nonpartisan, but those are some solutions that Ys, I think, can really lean into pretty easily. And some of those are really big helps for folks who are trying to make sure that they can get to the polls. Also, don't forget about our staff team. So the Y is one of the largest employers and one of the largest first-time job employers. Probably we have lots of folks on our staff team who might be new voters, first-time voters, or might even just have questions about voting. Where are their polling places? What is this all about? I love Danny's emphasis that this doesn't have to be intimidating or scary. Again, this can really be an empowering thing, and we can help to give folks information that really makes them feel like they can be a genuine part of the process and that their voices can be heard. So I would just really encourage Ys to think about what you can bring to the table, how you can make this fun and accessible for folks. So much of what we do already, that for all in our mission, really works here as well. How can we get this information to all folks, make sure all folks feel like they have an avenue to making their voices heard, and demystifying the process. So I love this idea. We'll be working directly with folks in our lobbies, just again, having fun, answering questions, having some of those tools ready, making sure we remind folks about local, state, and national elections. And of course, on voting day, making sure we're helping folks get to the polls in any way that we can. So I love this idea of just using those relationships we have, making this pathway accessible, and just doing what we do best at the Y, which is building relationships and creating community. I think it's what we do in all of our work. And I think it makes so much sense here too. So I love these tools, government relation team, great job. And Danny, it's been great to hear from you too, but would be happy to connect with folks either on this call or after this call if you're wondering about specific ways that your Ys can be active either on this registration day or in the future as local and national elections happen.
Sara, thank you so much. That was a really great way, I think, to kind of wrap up this call with some real life experience from someone who's done this before. And your enthusiasm is just awesome. And I hope others are also really excited to get engaged this year, and for every election from here on out. Again, as we've said, this does not have to be complicated. Something as simple as sharing that QR code, maybe doing some social media, having an in-person event at your Y. I know the past couple of years through COVID, people were really hesitant to actually have events, but they were able to still engage. So there are just so many ways that you can do that. So I know we only have like 1 minute. I don't know if we have any time for questions. Ellie, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I am going to stop the recording. So for anybody joining us on YouTube later, there will be links in the notes below this video, but we will stop the recording here and have some time for questions.